Hey there, ready to dive into the wild world of Cleopatra? Not the Hollywood version, but the real deal, the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Trust me, the truth is way cooler than any movie. So picture Cleopatra in your mind. Bet you're seeing a stunning beauty, right? Well, hold on to your hats, because we might need to redraw that picture. Ancient coins show her with a hooked nose and a strong jaw. Even old writers were more impressed by her smarts and charm than her looks. One guy, Plutarch, wrote that her beauty wasn't that special, but her personality was so amazing, it was like being hooked by a fishing rod. Turns out, Cleopatra's real superpower was her brain. Speaking of brains, Cleopatra was seriously smart. She could speak up to 12 languages. Greek was her first language, but she was the first in her family to learn Egyptian. Imagine being able to chat with anyone who came to visit, from Roman generals to Egyptian farmers. Pretty handy for a queen, right? She was also big into math and philosophy. Talk about a well-rounded education. But Cleopatra wasn't just about book smarts. She was really into science too. She wrote a book called Cosmetics, which wasn't just about makeup. It had recipes for medicines and even hair dye. She was especially interested in finding cures for baldness and dandruff. Bad hair day? Cleopatra's got you covered. Now here's where it gets a bit creepy. Cleopatra liked to experiment with poisons and cures. She would test them on prisoners condemned to death. Yikes. She was so into this that she wrote a book about poisons. Not exactly light bedtime reading. When it came to beauty, Cleopatra had some pretty wild ideas. How about taking a bath in donkey milk? She believed it would keep her skin soft. And get this, she might have used ground-up pearls in her face creams. Talk about expensive skincare. Oh, and remember the crocodile poop face mask we mentioned earlier. Some people think it might have actually worked because of the bacteria in it. Still, I think I'll stick to my regular face wash. Thanks. Cleopatra wasn't all work and no play, though. She started a club called the Inimitable Livers with her boyfriend, Mark Antony. It was basically a fancy name for a group that liked to party and eat weird food. They would have cooking contests and give out crazy expensive prizes. One time, she bet Antony she could spend 10 million sesterces, that's a lot of money, on one meal. Want to know how she did it? She drank a super expensive pearl dissolved in vinegar. Talk about a pricey drink. But don't think Cleopatra was just about fun and games. She knew a lot about ships and helped design them. She even had a crazy plan to drag ships across land to escape her enemies. We're talking about moving 60 ships over 800 meters of land. Unfortunately for her, it didn't work out, but you've got to admire the big thinking. One thing you might not expect about Cleopatra is that she was pretty funny. She liked to play jokes on people, like the time she put a saltfish on Antony's fishing hook when he was trying to impress her with his fishing skills. Imagine the look on his face when he pulled that up. She was good at clever comebacks too, which probably came in handy during tough political meetings. Now, Cleopatra's family life was complicated. She actually married two of her brothers. Yeah, that was a thing back then, and had her sister killed. But don't worry, this wasn't because of family drama. It was all about keeping power. In fact, her first husband and brother tried to push her out of power, so she fled to Syria and came back with an army. Talk about a family feud. Cleopatra was also a fashion icon of her time. She loved to dress up in the robes of Isis, an important Egyptian goddess. She would wear a crown with cow horns, a sun disk, and feathers. Sounds a bit much, but hey, when you're a living goddess, you can pull off anything. Speaking of being a goddess, Cleopatra wasn't just a queen. People thought she was divine. She fixed up old temples and started building new ones. This made people think she had godly power, which was pretty useful when you're trying to rule a country. She even had a nickname, New Isis. Imagine having goddess on your resume. Here's a cool fact. Cleopatra loved perfume so much she had her own personal perfume factory. It was at a place called En-Gedi by the Dead Sea. Scientists think they might have found the recipes for some of her perfumes. Eau de Cleopatra? Anyone? Last but not least, let's talk about Cleopatra's famous love life. You've probably heard about Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But did you know she had 4 kids? She had 1 with Caesar, a boy named Caesarion, and 3 with Antony, 2 boys and a girl. Talk about a busy mom. So there you have it. Cleopatra wasn't just a pretty face in a fancy dress. She was a smart, funny, science-loving, language-speaking, ship-designing queen who wasn't afraid to use crocodile poop if she thought it would help her rule better. She was a fashion icon, a party planner, a mom, and a living goddess all rolled into one. Next time you hear about Cleopatra, remember, there's way more to her story than you might think.